So when we were talking about the writer abstract class, we mentioned that the most important of the subclasses of writer was the output stream writer. So in this presentation, I'd like to really highlight what the output stream writer is as a class, so we can get a strong grasp of everything we can do with it. So a quick overview for this presentation is I'll give an introduction to the output stream writer. We'll take a look at the class declaration. We'll look at the constructors and methods and just some sample code. So the output stream writer in Java is a character output stream, right? That translates characters into bytes, does that for us, and it uses a stream of bytes as its data for output. But so at the end of the day, everything is bytes, but we can abstract the process of converting from characters to bytes using writers as opposed to the other types of streams we've seen, the output streams. So the output stream writer acts as a bridge between an incoming sequence of characters and an outgoing stream of bytes and converts a character stream into a byte stream. So when characters are written to an output stream writer, it converts them to bytes according to the default or specified character encoding and writes those bytes to the specified output stream. So in other words, our characters are written to the writer and are encoded into bytes using the specified character set. So there's a default character set, right? UTF-8, I think, is usually what the default character set is, but we can also specify character sets that we want to encode as bytes into the output stream. So the character set guarantees that any Unicode characters that we write to the output stream writer will be encoded in the correct byte representation. So a quick look at the class declaration. An output stream writer is a concrete subclass of writer, which is an abstract class. And so writer itself extends the object because everything is inherited from object at some level. It is also a superclass of the file writer class, right? So when we go and look at file writer will implement off of output stream writer. And so file writer provides a convenient way to write characters to a file. So the output stream writer class implements the closable, flushable, appendable, and auto-closable, and it implements those because, well, it inherits from writer as well. But if we actually want to look at the general syntax, so we can see what the membership of output stream writer would look like. Well, this is concrete class, so it would be public class output stream writer. It extends the writer. All of the writers will inherit from writer either directly or indirectly. And it's going to implement these, the closable, the flushable, the appendable, and the auto-closable interfaces. So it gets membership in all of those because we need to be able to do all those actions on any of these writers. And so a quick look at the inheritance diagram is that our output stream writer inherits from writer, which inherits from objects. And you can see the package levels of the inheritance as well. So like output stream writers in the IO package, writers in the IO package, and then everything inherits from object, which is in the java.lang package. So a quick look at the constructors. We have a output stream writer, which requires an output stream, right? So effectively, you can't instantiate the output stream writer without an underlining byte stream. And then the output stream writer will convert the character set into its required bytes. We define like that's the entire point of an output stream writer. And so if we use this constructor, it's just going to use the default character encoding to convert those characters into bytes. So the general syntax to create an object of an output stream writer is going to be like this: new output stream writer, and then we could pass in some output stream. And then we would wrap the output stream writer around that output stream so that we can call the methods from output stream writer, and then it will go ahead and do all the encoding from characters to bytes for us. So there's some additional constructors we can look at. We can pass in an output stream as the first parameter, but then as a second parameter, we can actually pass in a string that it represents, that is the character set name. So we'll actually look at some sample code of that. So this constructor creates an output stream writer object that uses the named character encoding. So the character set name specifies the character encoding that is used to encode the characters into bytes. So this constructor throws an exception named unsupported encoding exception if that name isn't right. If you try to pass in a string that doesn't represent one of the char set named that are available. Now, if you don't want to define it by just the string, by just giving the name of the character set, you can actually pass in as the second parameter, looking at this third constructor here, OutputStreamWriter. After you pass in your output stream, you can also pass in a data type that represents an int of a data type that represents what the character set is to encode your characters into bytes. And actually, there's not just char set, but in the fourth constructor you see as that second parameter after you pass in your output stream, you could also have a char set encoder data type, which also specifies how the character sets are encoded. So lots of different options for being able to define what that character set is. So looking at the methods that we actually have available in the OutputStreamWriter, right? So in addition to the methods that are inherited from the writer class, the Java OutputStreamWriter also defines some useful methods that you should be aware of. So let's take a look, and then these slides will be granted to you, so you'll always have access to them as references, or you could always look at the API documentation as well on Oracle's website. So obviously, close, close, close. Whenever you're done using any input or output stream, make sure it's closed. Now, the close method will automatically invoke flush, so anything that's kind of dangling in your stream will be pushed into the destination using the flush method. You can also invoke flush. Flush is also something you could do, which flushes your stream. You can get the encoding, because remember, that's one of the things that this manages, that OutputStreamWriter manages, the conversion of our characters into bytes. So we can see what encoding any given OutputStreamWriter is using. We have a write method where we can pass in a character array along with a second and third parameter in the form of integers that represents the offset into that character array and the length of characters we want to write from the character array. We can also just write a character at a time, so we can pass in our character in the form of an integer. And so this parameter, and that'll write that to our underlining character stream. And then we can also write with a string, right? So we've seen one thing that writer gives to us is write methods using strings. So we can pass in a string, and we can, as a second and third parameter, put where in the string in terms of an integer number we want to go ahead and start from. And then we can pass as the third parameter how many characters of the string from that offset we want to go ahead and write into our character stream. And again, all these methods, this shouldn't go here. I should have put this here in my head, in here. Note. All of these methods provided by the Java OutputStreamWriter class throws that exception, that IO exception, if any error occurs. Excellent. So now that we've looked at the methods, the constructors, and everything that's pretty relevant, let's actually look at the code so you can get a real application-based perspective of using OutputStream. So in this first sample application, what I want to do is write a string to the file. So let's take a simple application that'll write string data into a file that we specify. So this will be our source code. You can see this is very simple application. It's well commented out. We also have our output here with what will go to the console and what will go into the output file, txt, and an explanation. But what I really want to do is I want to go ahead and do this in IntelliJ. So let's jump over to OutputStreamWriter tester 2. I'll wait for a moment while my system loads up IntelliJ. Okay, so here, let me close this folder here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to OutputStreamWriter tester 1. Okay, so what are we doing here? So, and we're going to import the file output stream class because that's what we want to use. We're also going to import an OutputStreamWriter, right? Because we want to go ahead and, well, this is the actual class we want to use. But if we want to create a OutputStreamWriter, we need an underlining byte stream that we can use. So we'll use the file output stream that we're going to wrap our OutputStreamWriter around. And then we're also going to import the IO exception class because we potentially throw that method on any invocation of the methods we use. I mean, we potentially throw that object, that IO exception, on any of the invocation of these methods. So here inside of our application, we're going to create string data that says, I love Java programming. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file output stream, and we're going to give it that file name of output file txt. So let's see if that exists. It does. Let's delete that to ensure that this is going to work. So I'm going to delete that file. Okay, delete it. Yes, do the refactor. Now it doesn't exist. So now we're creating this byte stream right here. So we can write, we're going to write all of the data from our application to this target here, to output file.txt. Now we're going to wrap around this file output stream a OutputStreamWriter so that we can take the string data and write directly to the file, right? So that we don't have to encode it. We don't have to do the encoding process. Okay, so I'm going to save that as OutputStreamWriter here. Now I'm going to call the write method, and I'm going to pass it the string that we have here, data. And then I'm going to close my OutputStreamWriter. So when I close this, it'll also close the file output stream, which it is wrapped around. And then if I'm successful, if I don't throw an exception, I'll get this successfully written message. So let's go ahead and run this. And here I did get a successful message, so I didn't throw an exception. And then inside here, I have this output file.txt that got generated. And if I look into it, it says, I love Java programming. Excellent. Okay, let's look at another example code using the file output stream. So let's create a program to get the type of encoding that is used to write data to the output stream. Because we mentioned that there's multiple constructors that allow us to define the character set. So let's look at one. So this will be the source code, very simple application, fits on one slide. And this will be the expected output from the console, and that what will actually be in the txt file, and then an explanation of it. But what I want to do is actually go into IntelliJ so that we can play with the code and actually execute it in real time. Okay, so here, what I'll do is I'm going to delete that file again, output file.txt. Well, actually, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to illustrate that if that file even exists, what happens to it. So we do have that file from last example. I love Java programming. Let's see what happens if I leave it there. Okay, so I'm going to import my file output stream because we actually need a underlining byte stream to pass to our OutputStreamWriter because it's a wrapper class. It wraps around some other class and provides additional functionality. Here, I'm going to import my OutputStreamWriter because that's what we've been actually talking about. That's what we're investigating right now. We're also going to import our IO exception because any of our methods could potentially throw that exception. And then here, I'm going to import the car set data type. Now, one thing to note is that, and we're going to look at this a little bit deeper on some future presentation, but pretty recently, not too long ago, Java included a new package of IO, of enhanced IO function calls, method calls, and objects. So before, in the classic IO package, the one we've really been investigating, you define your car set as a string of what type of car set you want to use. But when the new IO package with additional IO data types to help improve the original IO package, One of those is charset. So from the NIO here, we defines buffers, which are containers for data, and provides an overview of the other NIO APIs. So one of the packages in there is charset, which we can use, right, for our OutputStreamWriter, because the charset represents the charset encoder or decoder capabilities. And so we'll just use a charset data type here. Okay, so here I'm going to create my class, my example class. So OutputStreamWriter tester 2 is my example class. Second example we're showing here. And on my main method, it could potentially throw an IO exception. So I don't have to worry about wrapping a try catch block. So I'm going to create here a new file output stream, and we're going to name our destination, our sink, as this output file.txt, which is the same one we used last time. Then I'm going to wrap around this file output stream, the OutputStreamWriter, right? So I'm going to pass that into the constructor. And so then I'm going to use this writer here. So I have an OutputStreamWriter, OSW. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that same file here, but as the second parameter, I'm going to use the charset, and I'm going to call its method for name and pass that as a string UTF-8. And so that will be using a alternate encoding than the default encoding here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print out the name of the character encoding used in both of these. And the name that gets printed out is what you could use as the second parameter as a string if you want to do this, not with a data type of charset or charset encoder, but rather using it as a string name. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And now, of course, I'm going to close everything. And so here we can see that the name of the character set used by OSW, UTF-8, yeah, that's the default. And all we did was we specified the same default there. But you can see how we can get the encoding of each of these. And now I stated that, hey, I didn't want to delete my output file.txt, right? That was originally I Love Java Programming. If I go look at it now, notice, oh, it's empty. And of course, why is it empty? It's because writes are destructive. When I create a file output stream, if it pre-exists, it's going to go ahead and destroy what was originally in there, unless I put it in an append mode. Didn't put it in an append mode. So when I initially created it, just deleted everything. So do be aware that that is a behavior worth mentioning. Excellent. And that's all I kind of wanted to really kind of demo out with the OutputStreamWriter class.